Irish people get more sex. It was good.
That's a cold opening in the house, isn't it?
Carry on. What was that?
So this is take 2. So we had some minor internet problems during that. So at which point the stream crashed, the apocalypse happened, Russia blew up something else, apparently my CPU. Anyway, moving on from that. Tonight we have got 2 special guests with us, Arron and Toby. And earlier I managed to do a great joke of Toby humping somebody at Glasshammer GT, and we'll go over that again later. But
do we have to?
We will have. We do have to. But tonight we're joined by Charles and Greg, two players from the DeadRED Gaming team who frequent many different tournaments across the UK. And if you've been to any super majors, you've probably seen one of their shirts. So guys, can you give us a wave and give us a hello for us?
Hello! So happy to be here. After I shouted out for not being enthusiastic enough, is that okay, boss?
You know what? I feel like
No,
that's
do it better.
That's
right. Kill the stream, restart it, let's go again.
Oh, at least it was...
Everyone, take your shirts off, let's go.
Wait, what? Why do you have to get naked, Toby?
Why not, Arron, is the question.
Look, how many times do I have to tell you? No one wants to see your nips. It's fine.
That's not true. They love them. The people love them.
I don't know if the people do love them. Anyway, moving on from this, what we're up to tonight. Tonight we're going to be doing the Glasshammer GT review, as actually the title presents. However, before you do that, if you could do us a mega favor, that would be really handy, and click some magical buttons. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe and pop a bell notification for when we have to go live a second time because the computer decides it wants to shit itself. Anyway, moving on from that, if we wanted a polished, top quality content, you go pay a fortune and join a subscription for Tabletop Tactics. Anyway.
We do it free. We do it shit.
Yeah.
Get free pay for here.
Free and shit is how we like things.
It is exactly the same as my escort service, funnily enough.
What, your typical OnlyFans? You know what, Toby's got an OnlyFans where a lot of people, it's like, you've got that free section and then you have that paid section. Toby's is just free. Not quite well done.
People pay him to put clothes back on.
Yeah.
That might be this.
Exactly, you got to give the people what they want, which is more clothes on at all times. At some point, I'll just put balaclava on or a bag on my head. Apparently, they're quite.
I do find it weird how Greg has basically funded all of your tournaments for the last year because of his OnlyFans subscription to you.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, Greg's my top fan. I appreciate it, Greg.
He's earned every penny. It's all good.
Lots of dick rating. Anyway.
That's more what Chris does, to be honest. I hope he's in chat now.
Oh, every part of me wants him to be in chat. Anyway, we need to talk about our sponsors. So we've got 2 sponsors tonight. One of our sponsors is Glasshammer Gaming, and they very kindly sponsor us. And obviously, we went to their tournament in force. 17 of us went. But actually, you could also enjoy their tournaments as well. They've got another one coming at the end of August, at the 31st of August, the weekend of that. And if you put in blackcrow into the voucher code, you get an additional 5% off your purchases from Glasshammer Gaming. So that is an additional 5% off of their tickets, 5% off of their models, and definitely not 5% off of Manny's OnlyFans because it doesn't exist, just in Toby's dreams.
I'll have you know that Manny gave me a kiss on the cheek when I was very drunk because I made him. So, yeah.
Do you know, guys? When we go into this Glasshammer GT review, there was some pinnacle points of what happened over that weekend. Other than obviously chatting to Charles and Greg over the weekend and having a great time, it was Toby's birthday. So let's just give him a belated birthday, guys. Happy birthday, Toby!
Happy birthday!
As long as we don't have to sing.
No, God, please no. Apparently, they tried to get them to sing on the tannoy, and luckily it wasn't allowed because I think that might have killed me off with embarrassment.
Yeah, no.
Something somebody on stream wasn't enough.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I'll embarrass myself. It's when my friends start doing it. That's when I'm like, oh Christ.
No.
Well, Toby, you deserved it. Oh, happy. Oh, so Luke has actually put in happy 15th, Toby. And Luke, to be honest with you, he does have the face of a 15-year-old boy, but he has.
Right, the amount of OnlyFans jokes we've made, and then 15. We sure? Are we sure, guys? 100%.
All right, let's make it legal for Toby. 16 and a half.
That's not much better.
Hey, they're old enough to get married.
Hey.
That's
Oh,
going to
what?
get clipped out of context, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Shall we actually get onto some content other than just spending this whole time just ribbing into Toby? Oh
How
god, that
hard
was...
are we going to get cancelled after
I was
this
gonna say you're
stream?
gonna get
It's all
cancelled.
right. It's after 2 minutes, anything goes. That's what I was told.
this is true. You own
After 3 minutes, mate, I'm done.
in comparison to like the Liam
That's
Dempsey
being
show.
good.
This is tame. Like we're getting away with loads. I mean, for one, we've got Greg on stream, and that is saying something. But he has got
Just ask Greg his thoughts on Sisters. Will get cancelled real quick, so it's fine.
Right, okay. Greg, what's your thoughts on Sisters?
No comment.
And is that the Sisters available on OnlyFans or
God.
what are you doing, Step Space Marine?
Oh god. Here we go. Toby recreating his best anime pose. So right, let's get into the content. So over the weekend we went
Please.
we went into the, we went into the Glasshammer GT at Birmingham, and it was 166 players, chaps, wasn't it? I think all in all. There might have been a couple drops after day one. And one of the things I noticed when we rocked up was just, and I think it's because obviously they didn't sell it out, but there was a lot of space, wasn't there, at this event? Like they spaced out the venue very well. It was easy to navigate to your tables. We all knew where we were going. There was a massive area for the stream space. They had accommodated for people's like needs, so there was like separate tables set aside. And I actually thought that was really important because I have been to events where players with those extra needs haven't had that supported. I don't know if you guys have ever witnessed that before, but me and Toby unfortunately have.
The space was massive. I just like being able to walk around tables.
Yeah.
It's always the worst when you're at the end table and you have to go all the way around because you're playing a stupid mobile arm and you've got all your deep strikes and stuff. Get your steps in, but it's
Well,
not
I
fun
actually
for anyone.
spoke to Manny as well, and he said even if they sell it out, he still plans on having more space between the rows compared to some of the other events, because he said he doesn't like it when you like ass to ass with people. You know, it can be a bit. So he always said there's going to be more space in the rows. So
I think you're breaking Toby's heart with that.
yeah, sorry, mate.
I mean, we always do hope that you've got like a mate behind you. I remember at Oxford.
You do.
I do, yeah. Because honestly, the number of times if you ever get Paul Bridge behind you, the amount of times his arse will just smack into you is just criminal. Like it is terrible. Like that man with his bum is lethal. I don't understand why, but.
Can we clip that? That's
that man's bum
Anyway,
is
back to the content.
Yeah, anyway, back to the content. Yeah, no, I think the space was great. It was the same one as the ICT, but it was nice to not be sort of packed like sardines, because I think we were all at the ICT, and like if you did have to walk around the table, I mean, thank God we weren't on clocks, right?
Well, yeah, it was difficult. At the ITT, I think they had to pack like 10 players in together, and the team events just sold out, and it was extremely tight in there. But obviously, it was still a really good event. Like the ITT was really, really good. But the thing that did stand out for Glasshammer was obviously the amount of space. They put a lot of thought into how they wanted their tables to be ultimately, and I think they also put a lot of thought of where they wanted everybody to be. Like obviously the stream probably needed to be in that space because of like a Wi-Fi signal or kind of where they wanted top table to be. But what I really thought was really great about it is just how involved Manny and Dan were getting with the players as a whole. I don't know if you guys felt that, but like we all had opportunity to speak to the tournament organizers, and sometimes when you go to like other events, you don't necessarily get that opportunity. Like I don't know if you guys had the same feeling, but like Danny and Man were coming up to my table and like having input and laughing and joking, and I kind of saw them do that with like multiple tables. How did you guys find it?
Yeah, I really enjoy it when there's a lot more, because they had a bigger judging team than any other event of that size. I think they had 4 or 5 guys walking around in high vis, so it was much easier to spot. And they were coming up to tables, checking in. It was a bit wasn't active judging per se, but they were actually engaging, which I really liked. And it was so much easier to go, oh, I've got a question, turn around, and basically you could just tap on the shoulder, because that came up in quite a few of our games. And they were all really responsive, which was great.
Yeah, I felt like the way that they handled some of the rules queries as well. They were really to the point. They obviously, they knew, considering Pariah Nexus had literally been out a week. They knew their stuff around the deck, and I think it was very brave of them to go, yes, let's use Pariah Nexus for this event. I mean,
Definitely, yeah.
it was they put the fear of God into me, because it was just like, oh man, I have not had enough time to plan and play this deck. Considering, Toby, have you even got your deck yet?
No. Still, I still don't have it for Sheffield. Not 100% sure what I'm going to do, but
At least the app's updated.
This is literally it. I'm.
You can always borrow half of a deck from a friend, I guess.
I don't have any friends.
Oh well, can't help you there.
Stop grinding them all then.
Nah, I love it. That's why I've got friends with benefits, Greg.
Yeah.
I mean, you did literally on stream aggressively hump a man that looks like he could have yeeted you across the hall.
Yeah, that's my type.
Yeah.
Large
So I'm safe then. Excellent.
Large and West Country. That's my favourite kind of man. That's why I get on so well with the Southern Black Crows.
So look, just to give the people watching this some context, because it was Toby's birthday over the weekend, us as Black Crow team, we decided that we would ply Toby with alcohol on the Saturday, and by probably about 11:30, he was quite drunk. But what he hadn't really planned for is that I'd had a conversation with Manny about saying, look, we're going to get Toby absolutely hooned. If he wins his first game, can he go on stream for the second game? And they were like, well, how much is he going to drink? And we were like, a lot. And their response was, absolutely, we'll get him on stream because it'll be hilarious. Exactly what you want to hear from a tournament organizer. And Toby didn't disappoint, because there were times when you were laying on the floor. There were times when you were just genuinely like in danger. But the craziest thing is you won that fucking game.
I did. So there was multiple times when I walked up to Manny and I was like, "It's close. It's good content. Like we're having a laugh. It's an entertaining game, but I've almost certainly lost this." And then somehow I scored a stupid amount of points on the last turn, and won by 4 points. Not quite sure how, but then unfortunately that meant I was 2-0 going into round 3 after 10 drinks. So that was never going to end well. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was cool that they had a stream, and like that was kind of a bit of a achievement's kind of the wrong word, but it's the word I'm going to use. Like a bit of a dream for me, because I've been playing competitive Warhammer under a year, and yet still got to go on stream at a major tournament. Like that's, to me, it's really cool. And like there was loads of people that were able to get on stream as well. So I think that was, and I think it was 2,000 people were watching it.
So 1,500 people watched it throughout the stream, but since then they've had thousands of people watch all of those games. It's been received really well, and during the event, obviously we got quite a lot of opportunity to speak to Charles and Greg. We have met before other events and chatted to. You played Toby at one of his first competitive events when you were running your Eldari list.
That never happened.
At least you didn't have a race night. You did. I got beaten by triple fire prism again, Greg. I need to tell you that story later.
Oh, nice.
I had to play against triple fucking fire prism again after you traumatized me horribly by picking up 600 points on turn 2.
I do love my fire prisms.
So I don't know why I've invited Greg, who's taken a skull from one of the Black Crows, and Charles over the weekend. You paired up, didn't you? And he's gonna hate me for putting this. He's already in the chat being like, "Oh no, he's gonna talk about this." But Charles, let's give you an opportunity for when you were at the Glasshammer. Which Black Crow player did you play, and what happened?
So I played. Actually, I think I played two Black Crow players, but I suspect the one you're on again. I'm awful with I want to say his name's Sam, but it
Yes,
could be.
yeah.
It's Sam.
so-
Excellent. Yeah. So at the start of day 2, my opponent didn't show up. Clearly, he'd seen my name and gone, "Don't want any of this smoke. Drop." And I ended up getting paired up into the 3-0 bracket, and I carted myself up to table 1, and Sam's there with his World Eaters, and we had a really great game, lots of fun. I did just about pip it in the end to stop his, and he, at the start of the game, was telling me, he's like, looking for that 4-0 dream, looking for it. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do my best not to let that happen. And in the end, I did do the horrible elf thing and just stopped him doing that, which I would say I feel bad about it, but he's playing World Eaters, so I don't feel that bad.
I mean, it's one of his, like, I think one of the better matchups for him as well. So I think it's just one of those things where it was a good matchup on Search and Destroy as well, wasn't it?
On Search. So for a bit more context, I'm playing mono Harlequins. And I was talking to Dan about this, and he goes, "What are the good matchups for Harlequins?" And I said, "When I find one, I'll let you know." So I was. I couldn't tell you how I won it. I think I got very lucky with the cards and a few key dice rolls because I had 4 pin buttons, and that can just completely scam a game.
He's the top player. Sam's raging in the chat. I love it. Sam, I just want to add a caveat here. We love you. But this is just very fun because Charles did take a great scout by doing it that weekend.
It was also Sam's first Super Major 4-1 recently, at the very least. I don't know, because obviously he had a long time of playing before this edition, but I think it's his first 4-1 as a Black Crow. So huge achievement there as well, mate, because there's only been, I think, 3 of us now that have higher than that, and 2 of them were at Glasshammer. So some absolutely smashing results from the guys there. So well done, Sam.
Yeah, well done, Sam. He absolutely deserved his record that weekend, and he probably should have beaten me as well. If I'm honest, if we play that game 9 more times, I think he wins 8 of them quite comfortably. Especially now he's a bit more familiar against Harlequins. It's
all the trickery, the Eldari trickery.
He might give me a rule book next time, and then I'm really screwed.
Oh no!
Have to roll dice. What's this all about? Just use fake dice. It's fine.
And Greg, obviously you were there as well. Any particular memorable moments for you over the weekend? Like, what really stood out for you that made this such a great event?
I think it helps that Dan and Manny are already quite used to being in the spotlight. They've got the Glasshammer thing going on, have it for a while. Everyone knows who they are. And a few times when they're doing Tano announcement, like Danny would like make a joke about it or whatever. And it was just good having people that were just so confident. You felt like in good hands. It was good.
And I think that really echoed as well, because there was some choice language over that Tatmoy at times as well, weren't there? We all knew where we stood, that's for sure.
It was a little bit less formal than usual, wasn't it? Which is kind of nice, but if it was your first tournament, you're probably a bit like, what?
Is this what I should expect? But I think also as well, like if it's your first tournament, it can go the other way and just make you feel really at ease and comfortable, and just be like, oh, okay, this is just going to be like a normal, like bantery adult vibe,
I think the really memorable, one of the memorable moments for me, there was quite a few, but there was literally, Gareth and I walked up stream. We were the first streamed game, and we just said, "Are we allowed to swear?" Because we're both quite sweary people. And Toby's had a couple of drinks, and David just comes up to us and goes, "Yeah, you can say cunt." Just not prompted in the slightest. Just straight goes to that word, and we were like, "Oh, okay, perfect."
He gave me exactly the same pep talk when I played on their stream. It's fantastic.
Okay, fair enough. At least we know where we stand now.
I mean, goddamn, I wasn't expecting him to just really come out with that. But I guess for them, they're just like, they wanted it to be as natural a gaming experience as possible. And when you kind of put limitations on what people can may naturally want to feel, they may then not feel comfortable whilst they're on stream, and then maybe make more mistakes or make errors that they're not that comfortable with. So I suppose by just being like, look, just be who you want to be and do what you want to do, it allowed people to feel comfortable on there. we had a couple players who went on stream. Charles, did you say you went on stream at the weekend as well?
Not that weekend. The weekend before, they ran an RTT to practice streaming and all of that stuff, and I went on there.
Oh
So I
yeah.
was like guinea pig out there.
And how did that go?
The stream game went awful. I was learning T-Suns, and you don't first time T-Suns at a tournament. And yeah, and then Dan was playing his Eldar, which is very good into T-Suns, and he absolutely battered me.
Oh, it was that game? Yeah, I think we had a couple of people in our group chat going, "Dan's playing against T-Suns. That looks like a good matchup for Eldari."
It's a very good matchup for Eldari, especially when I sort of got flustered and fed him like my screens turn 1.
So yeah, I watched that game, and it was the best way to describe that game, Charles, was like, this is how you deal with Thousand Suns as an Eldari player. And
oh yeah, he played it very, very well using the sight lines and the map and the mission. Like the mission was probably my worst mission as well, and he just played so much better than me. I can't say anything other than that.
However, from the stream point of view, it did make you look built. It made you look way bigger than you. And then you might have...
No need for that second comment, but sure. But yeah, no, the cameras were adding £10 in the right places on that stream, which was nice.
You just
When you
casually
meet me in person,
screenshot it. Just casually screenshot.
Tinder.
When we go onto the video we made you guys later, and we can talk about some of the haircuts you've got in there, because you told us not to bring that up.
No, I did say not to bring it. No, I said I will not be accepting criticism. Actually, you can bring it up. I'm just not going to be listening.
Oh, I think you look devilishly handsome. How about that?
Spoken like a man who's not watched the video.
I haven't watched the video.
Oh, poor Charles. And obviously, when we were going through the weekend, it was our first weekend getting our hands on Pariah Nexus. So, guys, as players at a tournament scene, how did you feel playing Pariah Nexus?
Who's going?
Go on, Greg. You go.
You can go, Greg.
Go on, Greg.
I like the changes quite a lot. They're a lot more. I feel a lot more dynamic. They're taking some of the bad cards out, like capture. They did replace that with something like, is it marked for death? Is that what it's called? Which is also one you can't do turn 1 or 2 or 3 usually. But it's definitely an improvement for me. It felt a lot more interactive, a lot more fun, I guess is the best way to put it. Yeah.
So you generally felt it was, so certain missions were gone, obviously, from that, like capture enemy outposts has just been binned off. I think is a brilliant change, because capture enemy outposts, if you're getting battered, or if you have an army that just isn't able to deal with it, capture enemy outposts is just not a good secondary.
No.
It might not even be where you want to be, and so having that as your pull, say like turn 1, and you pull capture any outpost. How many times is that just like a dead pull?
And there's the other end of it as well. Sometimes, like, you can have a bit of a swap with deployment zones, as you do with some armies, and they're just your opponent gets it last turn with extend or something. It's like there's 13 points for the standing there, and it's like I can feel bad as well. So I just don't think it was a good card in general. So I'm glad it's gone.
And Charles, how did you feel like playing the Pariah Nexus?
I enjoyed them. I think in general, Pariah Nexus it's a much lower scoring game in general, so the games are a lot closer, which do make them feel a bit more interactive. I think there are still some big problems with it, namely supply drops still being in the mission pool. I think I've got a vendetta against that mission, but also secret missions I think are a little bit too strong at the moment, and that really. So going into this tournament, I'd already played a lot of Pariah Nexus. I think I'd played 15 or so games before the event, so I understood a lot of how the secret missions really impact the late game. And as I think Sam said in the chat, right, your opponent can just score 45 points out of nowhere, and it almost, especially with that event using WTC scoring, it really incentivized you to just, if you were in the lead, you had to just keep pushing. And if you're against a newer player or somebody who's not as familiar with the rules, you have no choice but to smash them, because you can't let them have that route back in. So I think, the Prime Mission decks are great. With that little lead time, there was still a little bit of confusion, but much prefer it to if they'd just used Leviathan. I think on the whole, it's a much better improvement for the game.
And what about you, Toby? Like, obviously, maybe your day one was a little bit skewed because obviously we plied you with a lot of drink, and we hadn't got the deck until late, so we personally hadn't had much opportunity to practice, had we? But how did you find playing Pariah over that weekend in Hull?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my games were a lot lower scoring than usual, as Charles has already kind of gone over. I think it's really good overall. I think they do need to do something about pivot. I think that unfortunately that's probably the one where you get the most sort of feels bad. You get things like Doomsday Arcs and what they call the Eldari with fire prisms. That it just adds some weird layers to the rules. And then, secret missions. I'm not a huge fan of secret missions at the moment because going second was already impactful. If you go second on take and hold, you almost certainly score 15 on the last turn, right? Like, that's if you're not if you're not getting tabled, then you're probably scoring 15. And now the ability to score 20. Just because you've gone second, and especially when there's armies that want to build an early lead with early pressure, and then they'll probably die off towards the end of the game. But they've built that early game pressure. They've done what they needed to do. Those are the kind of lists that I enjoyed playing as well. That's why I played Firestorm. And you just can't really bank on that anymore. And I did come a cropper to that in my round 3. Because some armies just can really easily score those secret missions, and I'm not convinced it's good for the game yet. I think it's better than Gambits because they were completely irrelevant, but there still needs to be a bit more tweaking, I would say, on that. But apart from that, absolutely incredible. And I know we've probably focused a little bit too much on the negatives there. I know I definitely did, because it is overall great mission pack. Really, really balanced, I'd say, and lots of fun.
So, I mean, I am gonna add my spin to that. So, I felt like because obviously I played Custodies at the weekend. There was only 5 or 6 of us there the entire weekend. Custodies are still not being overly represented at a competitive level, but I thought, right, Shield Host has been much better. The army in a whole has been dropped in points for certain units. So I was like the Venatari, for example. So I thought, cool, I'll use this weekend to give it a go. I mean, there's no surprises. What as a custodian player, we struggled into, we still struggle into. But a lot of people were saying to me, oh, you don't have enough models to play the actions on some of these cards and some of these decks. So my caveat to that would be, well, actually, we're able to burn through so many cards now. It didn't really matter. Like, it didn't really come up for me that I was in a position where I couldn't do a secondary. Because if I drew a secondary, for example, and it was an action I didn't want to do or wasn't in the right position to do, I just burnt it. Just got rid of it. Just like as a custodian or an elite army. How often do you find us really smashing CP when you've got shield captains that have can do free strats, and we've got good rules on, we've got each. So I kind of felt like actually it wasn't such a major problem. Like the things that I lost into, like obviously Toby beat me at the weekend, but it's like that stat checking, right? Like -1 damage and fights first into Custodies is a stat check. It's a problem. And then I played into Thousand Suns, where they're going to be smashing loads of dev wounds. Guys, if you haven't played Thousand Suns yet, Charles, you'll notice as you've been playing with Thousand Suns, they're still super good. They're still very strong.
They did not get nerfed.
No,
don't let the Reddit tell you otherwise.
No. They took a sideways step. And that's about it. So I think overall, the big takeaway from the Pariah Nexus deck is that there is less opportunities when you're pulling tactical and you think, I can't do either of these cards, because you can still burn one every single turn. Did you guys find that?
Good change.
Were you cycling through cards quite a lot, guys? Like, how are you playing them? Or were you being quite reserved with your draws?
In a lot of my practice games, I was cycling it through a lot, but I built my list to score as many missions as possible. So I had loads of just individual units that could do those actions. But for more elite armies, I think once you burn 2 action cards, the chances of you getting a double action secondary is like 7%. It's something ridiculously low. And because either you're burning it or you're just getting a CP off of it, I really enjoy the fact that it's not just once per game now. It gives you a lot more fluidity to actually score as many points as you can, which is much more important now than ever before.
Yeah.
Absolutely, especially in this like low scoring game. Greg, how did you feel about it?
I forgot about it for the first 2 games, so that was good. But otherwise, yeah, it would have helped out a lot in the first couple of games. It won anyway, but during the last few, it did help a lot. It's a good change for sure, because like back in before, you burn once and then you were stuck sometimes with 2 cards that you can't score, and that just feels bad. And so that never really comes up anymore. You can always do something about it, which is really nice.
Which is, it's just a positive change. Probably we're not celebrating enough, because actually one of the big criticisms of Leviathan when people were playing tactical was, I got this turn 1, or my cards let me down. Losing a game because you're saying you got carded, which isn't, if you're the opponent and you've just beaten that player, you don't necessarily, you don't want that interaction either. You don't want to think I've got the win here simply because my opponent drew bad cards, because that doesn't necessarily make the win feel like a win. Am I wrong?
No.
Do you guys disagree, or how did you feel
No, I
about
agree. I think that we already play a game with quite a lot of not luck involved, but there is an element of luck. It's a dice game, obviously, and then when you include the cards on top of that, then the luck can feel like it's piling on, or the bad luck can feel like it's piling on sometimes. And that, especially if you're new and don't know how to mitigate that bad luck, it just feels awful. It feels like there's nothing you can do. There obviously is, because the top players wouldn't win consistently, but when you're newer at the game, it can be a real feels bad to have that go on.
Yeah, and when we're in an age of Warhammer where they're trying to reduce as many feel bads as possible, right?
Yeah.
So, like for example, I feel like they changed speed rolling for that reason.
I love that change. It's
I hate
one of the
that
best
change.
changes.
I hate it so much.
Why would you hate that?
Because it's so strong. Like, it from the gameplay point of view, it's fantastic, and it absolutely helps how the game plays. It makes it easier, simpler, fantastic change. But immediately after I saw that change, like my brain just went, I can just take as many melter as I can fit, and I'm going to. Like, it's so much better for armies.
It's just one reroll. I think you might be over exaggerating.
So
bit.
at the weekend, I was playing Eldar with D cannons and Fuegan and all that sort of stuff, and I got 3 wounds through from a D cannon, and it was 3d6 into a knight, a 20 wound knight. So 3d6 plus 6, and I rolled a 5, a 6, and a 1. I was like, cool, I'm just going to reroll that 1, and it just chipped it up enough. Whereas before, if I roll that 1 first, I probably don't think about rerolling it. So in some niche situations, it can be really impactful if you take armies that are a bit more swing like that, like
pretty
sisters.
damn niche.
Sisters, I think, really benefit from it with Paragon suits. There's a lot of combinations in the game that can take advantage of it. And I don't like it because I think it's very strong, but from a gameplay point of view, I think it's amazing.
So I personally think it was one of those scenarios where slow rolling just added another level of complexity that didn't need to be there. It just made it difficult. It just made it so like people coming into the game who might forget that they have to slow roll, they roll a bunch of dice, and then somebody could be that guy, and they'll be like, "Oh, can I CP re-roll that?" And the guy would be like, "No." You didn't singly roll them. That instantly creates a bad reaction. Like
there was a time where everyone just did that, and it was done the way it's done now, but because people didn't realize that's how it's supposed to work, so it was normal to do it the way we now do it for Pariah. And then it wasn't until people started to go, well, actually, and then it's and we had that for the next couple of years. So
I wonder if that was just because basically they were starting to get a little bit shifty with each other at Games Workshop HQ when they were like practicing playing, and someone decided that they've been smashed by Josh Roberts one too many times, and they're like, you know what, I'm having my CP reroll when I fast roll. Damn it!
You know what? Necrons don't need a nerf. Yeah.
Necrons are fine. CSM are now fine as well, guys. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
I genuinely believe that guy could take almost any army and probably win.
Yeah,
he's a brilliant player.
Yeah, he's a very good player.
Yeah, I think honestly, honestly, I kind of want to see him take the worst army to it, like default, not like the worst variation of that army, but the statistic, the poorest army, build what he thinks is the best list and then play it, just to see how he does, because I reckon he'd probably still make the shadow round.
Quite possibly, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
unless he does it. Look, if Josh, if you are watching this stream, which you most definitely are not,
Please don't, Please don't.
most definitely are not. But we do
Turned
know,
off at the beginning.
but we do
She's
know
great,
you're at Sheffield. I reckon we go up and we go up to him, Toby, and we go, look, can you for your next event turn up with GSC, please, and just see how he does.
Shockingly, I think he'll go fuck off.
He's far too polite. You'll be like, oh, no, thank you. No, thank you.
He's like, thank you, no. He's such a nice, like, I think he's such a credit to the community, bless him, that even when he's absolutely pounding you into dust, you're still having such a good laugh. Like, as I think everyone's now heard, he beat me 100-15, and it was still just like such a fun game.
Charles just went, oh.
Yeah, no,
I
exactly.
had a similar situation with him.
Did you?
It was the week after Warhammer World Championship, and it was, I think, Leicester GT, and I turn up and I'm running his Eldar list, so 3 Night Spinners, 10 Wraith Guard, Yin Khan, because I was like, I'm borrowing the models, I want to see what it's about before it inevitably gets nerfed. And my round 1 pairing is Josh Roberts on Manny's World Championship winning anti-Eldar list, and I was like, oh god. Oh dear. But yeah, like Toby said, he smashed me 6 ways to Sunday, but it was a really fun game, and he was an absolute gent to play.
What's the score, Charles?
100-51. So he didn't 20-0 me, and that's the important thing.
Oh, Toby, don't worry. It happens to the best of us.
Oh no, I know. I like this was so he was playing the Necron list, like just and literally before we started the game. It was kind of like when we played Greg. He literally went, by the way, this list is going to be nerfed because it needs it. And this was all the way back in Northampton. So like he started the game by telling me that, and I was like, yeah, no, I know what I'm in for. I know I'm gonna get hammered here. But fuck it, I'm playing Josh Roberts. Like, you know, it's a good laugh, right? And hopefully one day I'll get to play him in not the first round, and I've actually earned it to go up against him. But yeah, no, I think I think Darren obviously ended up playing him in the shadow round as well, and had similar experience of him just being a really lovely guy and having a really fun game against him as well. So yeah, awesome dude is our Josh.
So it's good that you mentioned that. So like, big shout out to Darren, who's in the chat as Unstable Llama. Massive well done to making the shadow round, going 5-0 at the Glasshammer GT, taking Drukhari, taking a really skewed Drukhari list with loads of Talos, and actually proving to everybody that if you believe in the list enough, doesn't matter what the internet tell you, you'll go and 5-0 a massive super major, get into the shadow round, and actually make Josh Roberts have to work for it as well, which is he deserves massive kudos for that. Because bear in mind the map favored Josh's army. Just pretty much everything went against Darren in that last game and was in favor of the other army, and obviously it was Josh as well. So it was like an uphill battle from the beginning, but he still did really well, and blackcrow were really proud of him. So big congrats there. So
Respect.
Let's talk a little bit more about DeadRED. So we've had 40 minutes of chatting crap. Let's talk about DeadRED Gaming, and then Charles, I think it's a good opportunity to start talking about some of the bits that you do as well alongside DeadRED. So who wants to lead let's hear about the history of DeadRED Gaming. Who wants to start up?
I'll let Greg go. He was there first.
Oh god, I thought you were going to go. You caught me off. Right, DeadRED is, so it's based around Hull, Lincoln, like South Yorkshire sort of area. And we always had like there's a how I started playing the game was for a company called Imps Gaming, and there was Hull's Angels up in Hull. And there was a bit of a rivalry. We used to like play against each other. We'd attend their GTs, they'd attend ours, and so on. And then just through various things happening, people leaving the game, etc. I think it was Steve and Joe and maybe somebody else I'm probably should remember, but mostly those two. They decided to make a team and just get everyone together in one team. And it just blew up overnight. We were just all joined it, and here we are. We've got quite a big team now. I mean, we took 5 teams to the ITT, which we was quite proud of. We've just got a great bunch of lads. We all get on, and it's made me. It rekindled my love for the game, to be honest, being in this team, because I was getting a bit burnt out. Wasn't really had no direction, I guess. And being part of the team has made me really enjoy the game again. It really has. So it's a cool thing to be part of.
And Charles, like obviously you said you joined a bit later. So am I right in saying both you and your brother are both in this team, right?
Yes, yeah, we both are. So we only started really well. I only started playing competitive sort of Warhammer or Warhammer at all, actually, right at the end of ninth, at the start of ninth. Sorry, just after, must have been just after COVID, and these guys were all at the events that I went to, and I used to go and get like, because they're all very good players, so I'd lose a lot. I just started talking to them, and then they were very welcoming, let me in, and now they can't get rid of me. And I brought my brother along as well. They lied. There's no referral bonus. I did not get £5,000 as promised. Very upsetting. But it also took me a depressingly long time, I should say, to ask where the name comes from. And it's not from Red Dead Gaming or Red Dead Redemption. It's an Irish phrase. If you're very red, if you're very ginger, you're dead red. And we have like 7 or 8 ginger people, so that's where the name comes from. As a fun bit of fact.
Yeah, there's many gingers in our team for some
We've got
reason.
gingers and Steves. We've got about 7 of each.
So in the video I'm gonna be showing you guys in a little bit, and this is interesting that you say that, because I actually knew about that phrase, hence the beginning of this video. And the reason I knew about it was, I don't know where it was from. I think it's something like my nan might have made a point, because we've got my nan is got a bit of Irish in her, and we've got a ginger. I've got a ginger niece, basically. And this is why, we've gone onto the new screen. This is why I did this little video for you guys, and hence the beginning of your video. So I've got a few questions with regarding to this video, right? So you sent me these photos, and I said, right, cool, I'll do a little mock-up for you guys at DeadRED. Help, you can share it around and keep it. So the flames at the beginning was because I knew about the little saying. The music was because I thought it was funny because it related to obviously Red Dead Redemption. So I kind of tried to make a little bit of a play there. But I'm really curious, do you guys like just dress up to GTs?
We dressed up to the ITT. Quite famously, and Toby did experience this firsthand. So I think for ITT Birmingham, we sent 3 teams, and we had the first team, then the team that I was captaining, which is actually the first team. It's okay, Greg. and then we had a third team, which was a bit more of the casual guys who wanted to go and have some fun. And so my brother's getting married, and he was like, I've been trying to get a 40k stag do. And he was like, no. I was like, well, I'm the captain. It's your stag do now, sort of thing. And we had this idea of, what if we just pretended we were all fluff bunnies, because he'd cooked up this teams list that was 27 Ravenwing bikes. And he was like, should we just all pretend we're narrative players, and then actually just go and actually play properly, not the narrative players don't play properly, but take lists that don't obviously look good, right? So there's a lot of skews. I had 25 cavalry in my guard list. We had 27 Ravenwing bikes. We had Votan with 15 of their bikes. So we went as the narrative division, and one thing led to another. We was like, we'll really sell this is if we dress up, but really shit. So I went and found like a commissar's hat and then the most flamboyant jacket I could, so it didn't get me cancelled. Our Necron player basically had a cardboard box wrapped in tinfoil, and then my brother was in a monk's robe. So that's what one of the photos were. And we just turned up in fancy dress. We don't make a habit of it, but I think we're going to do that for the team. I want to make it a habit for the teams going forward.
That's good.
It was
We kept it
entertaining to play
completely
again.
secret
Yeah,
from the rest of the
we
team
didn't
as well.
know. For all the other teams that were going, a part of DeadRED, we didn't know. So we turned up and they were there in the car park in all their fancy dress. We were like, what the hell is this? It was great.
So anyone that says when you go to a competitive tournament that it's just full of people wanting to be sweaty, you guys want to be sweaty in a different way by
Yeah, and as I see him in the chat, he's just pointing out. So, as a commissar and the captain, I had an important role to keep morale up, and I had the 0-20 morale improvers or bolt rounds in my bag, and they are just dried habanero chilies. So if you got 0-20, you have a chili. The motivation not to get 0-20'd. And this plan worked fantastically. Nobody got 0-20'd. However, on the Friday night when we all went down, two of the guys arrived a little bit later than us, and I was like, right, lads, you need to try chili. We've all tried one. We had all tried one. They're a lot hotter than I expected. So there's just two of the team are just in the kitchen, like tears streaming down their face, drinking milk. But it worked. No 0-20s were had.
I mean, wonderful if you're gonna that's some form of brutal punishment, torture. Greg, what did you do this on your team, or you guys more serious try-hardy?
Yeah, we were more boring. I want to join the narrative division.
Did you have a coach? Because Tryhard Gaming actually had like a coach going around with an iPad looking at like all the metrics.
That had that.
I
And
ran
that was
between
in-
the tables in our games.
It was weird. It was like, and this is just to be very clear. This is in no way any disrespect to Try Hard, but it was very strange having someone because we played them, having someone stand there with the iPad, like watching the game and like analyzing everything. Like at the whole time, I was like, this feels just. And I'm there like a couple of beers as well, knowing that my game's it's going to end 11-9 to one of us. It depends who goes second. But then, like, and I looked down the table several times, and everyone was like steely faced, like it looked like their lives fucking depended on it. And then there's me just going around like, "Woo, having a good time."
I do kind of hope that coaches don't become. It turns out that there's such an advantage that you kind of need one if you want to compete at that level, because I don't really like that. I'd rather it just be the 5 people. I don't really like the idea of having a spare person walking around like a caddy or.
I think you could actually. I think there is an argument for you to say, sorry, I don't want this person here. I'm not like signed up to play against 6 people. I've signed up to play against 3. And even like coaching, as in someone bringing around, showing you like the metrics, like someone spare. That is an advantage, right?
No, it is, yeah.
So that there are rules against and limiting what a coach can do, and I play a lot of teams, and I think in 5-man you're probably right. You don't necessarily need that caddy as a coach per se. If they're just getting water or running stuff, then it's fine, and that's a massive advantage. Like just from a quality of life point of view, in terms of actual game difference, if they are following the rules of what a coach can and can't do, it's not adding anything after the pairings are done. That if you're captain in the 5-man, probably in between rounds takes a break, goes and checks in on the tables and figures out, because that is a massive part of teams, is figuring out who needs to push, who needs to try and claw what they can back, and a coach just helps facilitate that.
I've just thought of this now. I never really thought these did much thought before, but like that's quite easily abusable, though, isn't it? I know there are rules about not sharing too much information, but
so the other thing
people
is,
take this very seriously. I'm sure they could find out ways to get that information across.
They could, but this is why that one of the most important rules of if you have a coach is whenever a coach is talking to a player, it has to be in earshot and in a language that the opponent can understand. So that's why you'll see an iPad, right? And they'll go point on the iPad what number you think you're getting. That's about as gamey as they can get with it. Then if you hear your opponent's coach telling him, "Oh, you can go and kill that model," or "You should kill that model," you can just call a judge and they should get yellow carded, like immediately. And like I say, if the coach is following the rules, it's not that much of an advantage. There are ways you can get some advantage, like with an eyebrow raise or something, but I've had a player come up to me. I think it might have been actually against the Black Crow team and said, "I've got a chance to push, and if I do this," and he started to tell me what he was going to do. I said, "I cannot offer you any advice there. I can say you need to push because the team needs the points, or that you need to hold. Don't risk losing points or whatever. But I can't tell you actual game things or plays to make. And if I'd done that, that is cheating. It's against the rules."
And I think that's very important, and that kind of brings on to this next point, as like when you have a big team like DeadRED, like Black Crow, integrity and being honest about your mistakes, and that's the sort of thing that you want your team to uphold, right? Because you want, when you go to these events, you want people to see your team as a team they know that oh, I've pulled a DeadRED Gaming player, I'm going to have a good game. They're going to be honest, and like we touched on things before the stream of like certain things that have happened at like tournaments and so on, and I think it takes like special layer of players to hold their hands up, go do and like say I made a mistake, right, and then go through and actually discuss that with people. And I mean, I know I've made a mistake whilst playing someone at a GT, and then in the middle of a GT I've been like, sorry dude, like I played that wrong, can we like flick this back and be like and then you have this back, and then we'll just say they're dead, and then I've taken my punishment there and it's not impacted the game somewhat. Because you, like, if you make a mistake, and when you're at these events, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of people everywhere, and it's quite easy for you to just kind of lose your head and make an error. I mean, Christ, Greg and Toby, I was EA Slam, I was a TO, and you guys had an incident on your table, and neither one of you were disrespectful or upset to each other. Greg, you were really like...
That's how we met, wasn't it? Like, I met you both for the first time at that game. I made a mistake and I added a CP on after my Farseer had died, just out of habit. And then it really affected the game later on because I wouldn't have had the CP to do what I needed to do. And you came over as a TO and had to unpack it all, and it was. But we got there in the end. It was difficult, but mistakes happen, don't they?
Oh, 100%. And it's like, as soon as I saw it, my first thought was, I do not want to win the game because of this. Like, even if there was a decision, because I come from a Magic the Gathering background where it's like, you do something like that, it's just a game loss. And I was like, my first thought was, I do not want to win this incredibly close game because of something like that, because that would just completely spoil it in my brain. Because at that point, we'd had an incredibly entertaining game. Obviously, your dice had massively betrayed you, and it was, I mean, you were playing Eldari, you deserved it, but then
story of my life, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well it did swing back the next time we played, but then it was such a close, entertaining, fun game, and it's one of my fondest memories of playing Warhammer. So it's like, you have those moments where when your opponent makes a mistake, you go, well, I know the intent there. Like, I know that my opponent wasn't trying to, be that guy or anything like that. We'll just find a way to resolve it and make it fine. Because let's be honest, we just want 5 good games. 5 good games of Toy Soldiers. Like, I don't give a shit if I win. Like, well, I mean, I do, but I also don't. I'm not. I don't. I want to win the right way. Like,
and on a positive note, like, how rare is it do you get a bad game these days? You play like 100 games and you get one bad game in that 100 these days, and they're the ones everyone talks about. So when newer players hear that, they go, "Oh, I'm not sure about these tournaments." But I'd just like to get it out there. It's like, I'm sure every player that goes to a lot of tournaments, they'll play 50 to 100 games before they get that one bad game that everyone talks about. But it's the 100 games that you have that are just fantastic, and that ratio needs to be talked about more, I reckon.
100%. I mean, you look at the amount of friends that, like, I mean, like, we've all met at tournaments, right? Like, so Arron was my first opponent at a local in Norwich. Greg obviously played me at my first tournament. Charles, we didn't play personally, but we played against Red Dead Narrative at the ITT. Like, so we've all met through these tournaments, and then we're all having a laugh together on the podcast. every single time we always go up and say hi to each other at the tournaments. Like I commented on someone's post about competitive play earlier. It's how I've met some of my best mates. Like the people that I rush to tell news when I have good news to tell them. Like when I got my job recently, it's always my Black Crow guys. Like it is tournaments that facilitate that. And I know that I fuck around a heck of a lot, but it is an incredibly important and positive community.
Absolutely. I mean, just think of like how big your network has grown. And like this is one thing I said to Greg and Charles recently. So obviously we invited you onto the podcast, but you guys, you kind of said to us, like, one thing we're trying to do is build your brand and your identity online. And this kind of leads really nicely, actually, because you mentioned to me, Charles, about your business, and you are a commission army painter, and you're a talented painter. And one of the things that you said is, like, we're trying to grow my image, trying to grow the image as a brand as DeadRED. But I then decided I'd take the opportunity to make you something, which I've sent you already. But this is for everybody at home who's going to watch this podcast. I want you to see, this is the Top of the Table Minis advert. So this is now your opportunity, Charles, to sell your brand, bud. So feel free, go wild.
I mean, first of all, thank you so much for doing that, Arron. It's really amazing. Yeah, so I am recently just started commission painting full time, and I sort of specialize in tournament armies quickly. So getting when the new data slate drops, if you've got an event in 2 weeks or whatever, I can get a whole army battle ready very quickly. I can paint very pretty when I want to, and I've got a whole sliding scale of the quality that you can go to. And that's sort of my business pitch is I can paint fast, and it's cheaper than something like Siege Studios, because those guys, you massively get what you pay for, but they take a bit longer. They're more expensive. My niche is very much in the competitive space, and because of that, as I am in the competitive space, I do understand what the meta is doing. I can, if you send me just a box, I can say, what loadouts do you want? Or if I need to build it, I can just build straight to the best loadout, or whatever list is at the time most important. So it's sort of that complete package for a tournament player is what I offer.
And you alluded that obviously you're very quick. So just give us, for people at home who may watch this, give us kind of an idea of, how fast can you turn around, say, for example, a 2,000 point army?
So if it was, for example, my 1,000 Suns, and you can see Magnus in the back up there, I got 2,000 points of 1,000 Suns, grey or new in box, collection of like eBay stuff or whatever, sent to me. I got that on Monday, and then I took it to an event on Thursday. So I can get completely battle ready very, very, very quickly, because I have a lot of speed painting techniques. So it's a very extreme turnaround that it's, a matter of days, or I'm not going to say overnight, I'm not Amazon, but very, very short. Obviously, if it's like 120 Orc boys, that's a little bit longer. But it's quicker than what most people will be able to have in a very busy schedule and a very busy day. And that's really where the value of it lies for the majority of people.
And obviously, one thing you alluded to me at the weekend is that you go to a lot of events. So if this person was going to an event, you bring that army that you've painted for them to that event if you were attending it as well?
Yeah, and actually, it's funny you should say that. So I was at an event yesterday, and I was speaking to a guy, arranged beforehand, but he gave me a box of Blood Angels, and they are now painted and boxed back up, and I'm taking them to Sheffield for him for his game 1. So it is exactly that. I can do the delivery service as well if it lines up.
And I think, obviously, in the world of a lot of painting services out there, I think this is where you fit into that market, right? It's speed painting. You've got a variable on, obviously, like most places now, of do you want battle ready to pretty, like studio painted style armies. And blackcrow, obviously we will support you in any way that we can to help you get your brand out there, because that's what we want to do. We want to support our community, and we obviously, as a team, we wish you all the best with growing that brand, and hopefully
thank you so much. It means so much to me that you've offered to do this, despite the fact there's now a lot of public pressure. I have to it's the business equivalent of being sung happy birthday to, Toby. So I think it's only fair now.
We all start singing it, yeah?
No,
I'm not singing on stream.
No, we're not singing you happy birthday, Toby. You're not getting your clothes off on Toby. You're staying dressed. You're staying tame. And
it's after 10 o'clock. We're allowed to.
No, Greg is already uncomfortable with your presence as it is.
That's just normal me at this point.
That has just prompted a thought. Sorry,
I don't like it in the public. It's better when I'm on his OnlyFans.
Yeah, when he's paying for it. But I do like how in that entire segment, Greg, you must have your monitor off to one side, but it looks like on the stream that you're just watching the video. And then me and Toby like staring the other direction. That made me chuckle. Completely unrelated, sorry, but
just Charles looking at the monitor, what nobody else can see.
I was scrolling through Chris's OnlyFans. That's what I was doing.
Well, what he's talking about?
Not a lot to scroll through there.
One of the guys in chat just said, "Oh, okay, I'll go then. This is what I've been holding out for the whole time, was Toby getting his kit off." That's not an invitation, Toby.
Which one? Who was that? Was it Luke?
No, it was Ray.
Oh, it was Ray instead, was it? Oh, God bless Ray. Gotta love Ray.
Well,
I'll send you some photos later, Ray. Don't worry.
He's our quiet little pervert. Anyway.
Oh, quiet little pervert. What a name. Might get him that on a shirt.
He'll love me for it. I'm going to get so much grief. This is what you get, Ray, when you go on my social media and you give me stick about my legs.
Yeah, for God's sake, never question Arron's legs.
Yeah, I'm protective of my sparrow legs, And what are you guys up to next? DeadRED as a team. I know there's a lot of you going to Sheffield.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many of you attend in Sheffield?
It's like 15.
Yeah, it's like
around that number.
It's a lot. Is it more than than the Black Crows? That's the main thing.
Yeah,
for this one, yeah. I mean, the last few events, I think it's been difficult for people to outnumber us. I mean,
17 and 30.
Yeah, you guys took 5 to the ITT. We took 6. We rocked up to Glasshammer with 17. We'll go into the next ITT with 25.
Nice.
That was hard work, actually. Poor old Toby. Take a hat off for that one, because actually being able to get, is it 25, Toby, or is it 20?
What, the next ITT?
Yeah.
I think we've got 20 currently, with a 5th team looking to try and get a ticket, because I think like a lot of teams, including Vanguard Tactics, England, loads of them, they ain't got tickets at the moment. So
did you guys manage to get a ticket for the next ITT?
Yes, I think we've got 3 teams going this time. The narrative division are back there. I am returning as captain, so fancy dress will be mandatory.
Oh,
excellent!
God.
I'm going to steal your
throwing
hat
down the gauntlet for Blackcrow. I want to see at least one of your teams dressed up.
Oh my God!
I don't know how I dress up as a
dress
dark
up
angel.
As your army. As a dark angel, you just put a monk's robe on.
Well, yeah, but I feel like I've got to go more original than that now.
So Charles, you say that we do have a Blackcrow player who has been on chat tonight. He said absolutely he really wants it. So Jack is one of the few people who dresses up as cosplay as the Green Goblin, but I think he has like a functional like replica of the glider that he stands on, and it's like patented, or like
it's at the Small Gamer if you'd like to check him out on Instagram.
He could go as a Hellion, couldn't he?
Oh my God, he could absolutely go as a Hellion.
Do it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. So
But everybody else goes in like intentionally shit cosplay, because that's half the fun is when you just like it's something a bit shit. I think, and then you got one guy in proper cool, fully decked out gear.
I'll go as the most budget custodian player you'll ever see, and
Gold spray paint all over your face.
Oh my
Sorted.
god! So I just do gold body spray.
How do you do
So-
budget nids?
Budget nids. Dress up as a bug. You get a spider costume
a
somewhere.
child's like bee costume or something.
There's really crap like antennas you have, you
Antennas.
know, with a little.
Greg, if I can get you in a bee costume, I will genuinely. I'll pay for that because that would be so beautiful,
Hey, I've got no shame. How much?
mate. Whatever you want at that point.
You know, Greg, someone in the chat earlier did offer £10 for an upskirt of yourself.
Yeah, I know that person. There's no surprise there.
Which, you know, if we were doing super chats, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Super chats. Yeah, I guess I have to get naked now.
Oh God, Toby, you do it for free. But
Yeah,
when you come
always.
to actually dressing up, you know what? I'm not against the idea. I think it could be fun. Now, it would only be really fun if, obviously, the narrative DeadRED team and the other Crow team that were dressing up got paired into each other.
I'm sure we can arrange that.
I mean,
Amazing.
anything is possible. I said to Manny, I was like, there was absolutely no way that you've managed to get like 14 of our players on 14 consecutive tables in the first round. From table 1 all the way down to like almost table 14 or 15 was a Black Crow player.
Yeah,
Like-
it was really. And then I was off on table fucking 44, and I was like, "Why am I missing out over here, fellas?"
But that
Well,
was.
if we don't get a sorry,
Go on, Charles. Say it.
I was gonna say, well, if we don't get a round 1 pairing between the dress-up teams, we could just have a scrap in the car park.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
That would be there'd be headlines on that. I'd give
It'd be like
Mikey something to
Anchorman,
talk about
wouldn't
for
it?
months.
It would be like Anchorman.
I reckon we could actually. I reckon we could convince a couple more teams. I think the 6++ boys. We could probably get one of their teams to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, it depends on what mood they're in. Like you gotta get.
Redacted probably would. I think Luke's probably in
Tryhard
chat
probably
right now.
could. Probably get
Try
Tryhard.
hard, almost certainly.
I-
Yeah, I reckon we could.
like,
We could have a
We
chat.
we
with them.
approached the ITT and like our esprit de dressing up
Hmm.
like it was a cricket game basically, and that's how I pitched it to the guys originally. Because you sit and you drink for 6 hours and you dress up like twats. It's great.
Yeah,
I mean-
yeah, 100%.
It definitely gives an element of conversation when you get to the table and someone is dressed like a twat.
I think it was an interesting little tactical advantage that because we chatted a bit about it as well. Like when you said, "Oh yeah, we're the Red Dead narrative division," and like I remember when we saw the pairing, we all just went for a second. We were like, "Okay, nice. That's probably a good thing." And then as soon as we walked up to the table, looked at the lists, I was like, "Nah, bollocks. That is not a chance. That's actually a narrative division."
Our round 5 opponent, which was Team Wales, they said to us in pairings, he said, "You guys are going to pretty well for a narrative team," and we were like 3-1-1 at this point, or 2-1-1, I think. Something like that. No, we 3 wins and a loss. And they said that to us, and I sat there and I was, yeah, by 1 point, Toby. It's all right, I'm over it. But I sat down and I said, yeah, we've done all right. We've done all right, and then we proceeded to do very well into them as well. So we got the draw, but we had the winning side of the draw, so we won. But no, our favourite thing about ITT for the last 2 that we've been to, round 5 pairing has been our team 1 versus team 3 or team 4, and it's been brutal every time. Greg, you can probably expand on that.
Yeah, he's basically trying to make an excuse for us beating him every time.
Yeah.
That's what he's trying to
They
do.
get slingshotted up the rankings because they go.
He left out the part that we got paired into Team England both times as well.
That's not
He
relevant.
left
I
that
don't think it's
part out.
relevant at all.
Yeah,
To
sure.
be fair, Greg, like I mean, looking at who's in Red Dead Team 1, Team England is kind of where you guys should be playing. Let's be honest. Like where Mark in your team, he's what, like 6th or 7th in the UK at the moment. You were 8th last year, weren't you?
Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So
Greg
it's like,
doesn't believe in rankings. He just has his own natural ranking in the world of being.
I
being
believe in
Yeah,
best
yeah.
in factions. I like going for best in faction. That's my jam.
what's your sort of faction? Are you you going full on into NIDS now, or what's your aim for this one?
I'm going to try and get NIDS and maybe Votan for ITC as well. Try and get both.
Okay. There's who's the chap? There is a very, very good Votan player. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but
It's Greg
only
Chamberlain.
plays Votan. It's Greg Chamberlain. That's the one. No, it was
Danny Paulson.
Danny
my-
Paul's very good. He played
He's
them for a
very
little
good.
while,
He's
but he's
part of Poland, but I think he's Team Poland.
he hops
He's on
about
the
because he just
Votan.
plays what's good at the moment because he kind of has to because of the teams. But yeah,
it was the guy because you were at Northampton with me. It was the guy that made the Shadow.
There's James Marston's been playing them.
That's the one, James Marsden.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's a very good player with the Votan. I'm not sure. I don't know him personally, in all honesty, so I don't know if he's pure Votan, but it does seem to be his name and Votan popping up quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think then? Let's talk about. We'll talk briefly about like the meta changes before obviously wrapping up. So obviously you're taking NIDS. NIDS have had some interesting changes. If played correctly, and I kind of just want to like, where do you think they're kind of sat at the minute? How do you feel about it?
I think they came from being one of the worst armies to I think they're about middle, maybe upper middle now. I think if they became more prominent and good, I think they're very easy to sort of adapt to. For example, like Morlocks, if you play against them all of a sudden, they're going to catch you out. It's a bunch of mortal wounds. But if they were meta, you could easily build to avoid those and play to avoid those. I think they're a bit of a flash in the pan. I don't think you'll see them much after a month or so. But yeah.
And Charles, you're obviously laughing about that. What do you think?
I'm laughing at the comment in chat.
Bedford's trying to wind
Bedford's
me up,
comment, but no, I think I agree with Greg. They've gone from one of the worst armies. I don't think they're mid. I think they are the top end of mid, creeping into very good. Particularly Vanguard. As a faction on whole, they're probably not great. But this one detachment in a skilled pilot's hands is I've seen it do just horrible things. Even after we've sat and tried to figure out how do you play against it, what beats it. It's a very consistent army that plays the new missions very well. And I think that's the big thing. The army changes paired with the new mission system, I think plays into a lot of their strengths at the moment. They're not unbeatable. Nothing in the game is unbeatable at the moment, which is great. But I do think they are quite a lot stronger than people are thinking they are at the moment, and certainly more than the win rate would suggest, because a lot of people have Tyranids as they were a release box thing, so it might skew a bit of the stats. But I think they are a very strong faction, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them become more prevalent in the meta.
I mean, I agree. I think then another army that's probably going to do very well, and obviously me and Toby and the guys at Crows have talked about this quite a lot, is Dark Angels. So Ben Jones took Dark Angels to Glasshammer, ran the Terminator bricks, and his only loss, I believe, that weekend was to Sisters, right?
Jack Tight,
yeah, Jack Tight, pilot who's an exceptional player, playing Sisters, which probably have the best army rules in the game, other than the fact that they're wild. They're very they're not expensive because they're super good, but there are a lot of points right now. You don't see anywhere near as many Sisters on the board as you used to. So how are you guys feeling about the Dark Angel changes going? Come on, Toby, I'll let you lead on this one.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've spent a lot of money on Dark Angels models recently. I think it's going to be really good. I think they've completely changed the kind of army they were. Space Marines were like a pure shooting army because Ironstorm was the best. I know I wasn't playing it, but I was a weirdo. So they were like very, very shooty, triple Redemptor, with the Dark Shroud, all that kind of thing. Now suddenly, what I'm most excited for is our pretty models are also now our best models. Like Inner Circle Companions and the new sculpts for Deathwing Knights are gorgeous. They're like, I'll say, I don't do it justice with my paint job. Maybe I need to talk to Charles about doing it. But like, they are gorgeous models. I'm not. Yeah,
I'll give you exactly. a special price as well, Toby.
Oh, you little charmer! I mean, unfortunately, I've now nearly finished. But yeah, $2,000. All right, well. I'll message you. I'll give you a free subscription to the OnlyFans. But
2,500.
but yeah, they are. I think they're class. I think the Lion, now that he can breach, is a legitimate threat. Like between that and the decrease to heroic intervention, so now he fights first is even more relevant. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be like it's the most excited that I've been to play Dark Angels for a very long time, because it's something that's so new to me. In that I'm playing a combat army now, and there's just so many cool rules in there as well.
And I think they're another one of the big winners of the data slate and MNF. But I suppose it's worth us also touching on like some of the other armies. So Charles, you ran Eldari. They took another gentle nerf, really, didn't they?
Yeah, they took a look up.
And they've been they're an army that's been just gently or aggressively, or whichever way you want to put it. They've just been nerf. Where do you think they now sit? Because I think they've got a massive book. They still have access to a lot of tools. They're still very usable, but are they still an A-tier army?
I want to say yes, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm taking Eldar to Sheffield in that respect. I think there's a lot more. It's a very deep codex, like you said, especially if you now add the Drukhari codex, because Ynnari is going to be much more prevalent now that because of the changes. It sort of priced out a lot of what was really good in the Eldar codex. I think every round of nerfs with Eldar, it's people are going, oh, my S tiers, the first bit of S tier is gone. I've still got plenty of S tier units to play with. So I think they're still a very strong faction. I don't think they're broken, and by and large, a lot of their nerfs have been very well justified. I still think they are very, very strong, though, in a good player's hands. There's a lot more skill expression required now, but when you do still get it to click, it just feels like Eldar are doing everything in the game that they want to do.
Yeah, I got to admit, I played an Eldar player over the weekend, and he was lovely. But I think the thing that I found that I was able to expose is that they are still fragile units, and if you get caught out, so say you make a small misplay, it's not a forgiving army now, not like it used to be. Like if Eldar are caught out, that could be crippling to your whole game plan. Like all of a sudden you could lose like multiple units, and it's game over. So I think now they've become more of a finesse army rather than an army where you can spam units behind a wall and delete stuff. Charles.
So the list I ran at the weekend was Charles. 2 Night Spinners and 3D Cannons. So they can still do that. That's still a thing.
But did you find it was as? Do you think it was as strong as it has been?
It was a lot less inconsistent because I'd lost all my screens, and like you say, it's much more if you get caught, you die. And it's a lot less forgiving now. So it was still strong. Like when it goes off with 3D cannons, you're going to kill anything in the game. When it misses and the indirect changes have hurt D cannons specifically, they're a lot less consistent now. When it goes off, it's great. When it doesn't go off, it's awful. You have a lot less of a security blanket as well.
Do you think that's going to work into a new meta that we're going into? I mean, we've all seen the Sheffield rules that have come out from UKTC, the Super Majors, about 200 players registered. That is a combat weekend. Like we've all seen the new maps. Those maps are designed for combat armies. Like it's quite a dramatic change actually from what we were used to with UKTC having arguably quite a favourable setup for shooting to now actually being quite favourable towards staging and combat. I mean, has that affected the way you've built this Eldari list?
Yes, it certainly affected how I've built several of the lists that I'm looking at. I think whilst there is a lot more staging area, there's also quite a lot of sneaky sightlines that have opened up now as well. There's a lot of I can see into your deployment zone into your home objective from my deployment zone quite easily. So I've started looking at things like fire prisms again, so triple fire prisms, much Toby's delight. I'm sure that there's a lot to consider still. The biggest one is the melee threat. Once you run out of board space, you're really in trouble. And it means I've had to put in a lot more stuff. So I've now put the avatar back in because he gives me that a bit more reliable melee defense. And striking scorpions much the same there, rather than where I used to use rangers. So it has definitely impacted how I built the list and how I will end up playing the list.
And Greg, how about you? The same question to yourself, mate. Like when going into this, obviously Tyranids have a range of good combat options. Surely you're looking at Sheffield and you're thinking, I could do all right here. Like this favours my playstyle.
Definitely. I don't think nid shooting is all that great. So to drop a bit of shooting, I was happy to do that. So once you see I played a few games on the board now. I played quite a lot actually, and it's quite hard to shoot on that board. You'll only get to shoot what ends up on an objective or what your opponent wants you to shoot or is okay with you shooting. It's very rare you'll pop out and shoot something, unless your sisters that go 27 inches and shoot behind the wall. That's a different story. But generally, for most shooting armies, I think they're going to struggle. I will say, although there is a lot of staging with combat, as you look at the maps, I think what a lot of people have missed is there's lots of way to block charges as well, because you still have the 1-inch rule with the UKTC.
Yeah.
And playing some games, I've realised you can block a lot of charges, and it can be a lot harder to get the charges off than people think it's going to be.
This is where fly is going to be really strong.
Yeah.
Combat jump pack units. So I think Sons of Slanguinius, for example, the Blood Angels, where they're just running 30 jump pack guys, they're going to really enjoy this weekend. They're already an S tier army, and I think this UKTC has now made it so that they can a good pilot with a Blood Angels army will do extremely well this weekend. How do you guys feel about that?
I think Sisters, Dark Angels, and Blood Angels are clearly above everyone else. It's not. I think it may become even a problem at this point. I think they're definitely ahead of every other army. Those three.
I think they've had a dramatic swing. Absolutely. And the thing is with Meta Monday, if you've not read the article, we were going to show it tonight, but it was just tanking the internet. So the Meta Monday article actually showcased Custodes having a 55% win rate. And we talked about one thing I want to talk about with Meta Monday is they have like 60. They advertise 60-player tournaments, 50-player tournaments. Now we all know that is majority your local meta, right? And and that is very much dependent on the terrain that is available. So if you've got really dense terrain, yes, armies like Custodes are going to do very well. If you go into a tournament where the terrain is quite light, they're going to really struggle. If your meta is an area where they dish out a lot more wounds, Custodes or other armies, similar elite armies, are going to struggle. And I think the true balance comes from our big super majors or not even that, or tournaments that consistently have a certain type of terrain that we're all familiar with, right? Yeah. I feel like those statistics are more representable. So, or areas that, so for example, Paul Bridge from Peterborough Slam, he uses a very different type of terrain, but all his boards have that same terrain, which is designed with competitive players at the forefront. So he knows that you can go and you can do well with a competitive army, or you can do well with a shooting army, for example. I don't know about necessarily your local events in Lincoln Holway. Do you find that the same? They're using UKTC Glasshammer, or are they using kind of their own?
Actually, yeah. Imps use UKTC and Hull use Glasshammer. So
results from there, we could argue that would be quite representable of what the actual statistics are telling us. I mean, how do you guys feel about that when you look at some of these statistics for GTs? Is it worth they start adding what type of maps they're using and what type of scenery they're using to give us an idea?
I think it adds a lot of context, but I don't think it's because a large majority of the data is coming from America. Even some of the big, even when they put out America, you can assume it's either player placed or FLG. They're their two big things. UK is most likely UKTC, some of it's Glasshammer. Europe is pretty much WTC. So you can start to draw these things. And I think by adding the context of all the different maps together, you're actually building a much more representative thing, view on a faction across the whole meta, and not just what's dominating the UK scene, what's dominating this. Because you'll find if you look at any of the data from Australia, their meta is completely different because it's driven by other factors than just terrain. So the context is important. I don't think we should be including or discounting anything that's above. And I think 50 players at a 5-round event is probably a reasonable, as good a cutoff point as anything. Above that is,
I agree,
going to be acceptable data, because it just adds the data set and grows it out massively.
So do you think then, as something for tabletop battles, maybe we've seen that they're able to update their app very quickly. Would it be? Do you think it'd be a good idea for tabletop battles to put in a button where it says
terrain type?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that'd be great. I think you could get.
They used to have something.
They
like
have
that.
got that.
Yeah, they had a terrain thing at the start of when it first came out in back end of 9th.
Tabletop Battles has one now.
So
Yeah.
So then my ask would be then is, why can't BCP do it? Because one of my big criticisms of BTCP recently is that it's actually gone massively downhill as an app. I mean,
it's
Mine
not an
doesn't
app
work.
anymore. It's a website. It's the problem you've got with BCP for what you're looking at doing with or suggesting there, Aaron, is it's fundamentally not a Warhammer app. It's a bunch of databases, and it's a pairings app for any, it's system agnostic. So it intentionally doesn't capture as much of the results as you want it to, because it has that flexibility then. And as buggy as it can be, it's still very quick. As soon as you start adding more data points, you're massively increasing. And I could go on a tangent about this. I used to work in databases. You're massively increasing the size of your databases, and that adds so much more complexity. It's not quite it's exponential how much additional processing is required there. So if you start adding those points, it's ballooning massively. Whereas the Tabletop Battles app can just do that, because it's designed to do that, and that's what it's very good at. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now.
I know we joke about it, but it's an interesting point, right? And probably something
I'm joking. I'm joking.
But considering we play a hobby where what we take is quite impacted by statistics and the meta, actually having context is really relevant, because it really matters about what your local scene is into, because the meta in Hull and Lincoln is probably completely different to the meta in East, like Norwich, or down in Somerset, or up in Wolves, or in Manchester, or it changes. And we're a small country, so imagine what the variance would be in a place like America, where basically you have to fly to get to tournaments.
That was going to be like my devil's advocate counterpoint to getting that information about the terrain types. I think it's far less of a factor than player skill. And when you get these smaller events like that happened on this weekend, for example, you said the biggest one was 60 player, which is quite small these days, which is quite cool to say. But I think player skill is much more of a factor, which you can't account for unless you get an ELO system, which I know StatCheck are trying to work on it. And maybe the dream will happen one day where we all use an ELO system. But currently, as it stands, it's just a case of you could go to a local tournament with 30 people, be a player of a decent caliber, and it could be all their first tournament, and that's a win for whoever it is. Dark Angels, and it skews the stats way more than any terrain would ever skew.
It's absolutely opinion. One of the Custody players went and won a GT with Null Maiden, with a Sisters Null Maiden list. But then when you broke it down and actually had a look what they took very, very few Sisters, and mostly stuff that wasn't involved in Null Maiden. And like you said, it just skews the stats massively.
Yeah.
And so at what point do you think it's worth us cutting off then? Like Charles, you said a good one would be 50 players. Cut it off at 50 players. Don't actually record anything under 50, or is that too harsh?
I think you'd set an arbitrary cutoff point. I think an ELO system would be the best one, and StatCheck do that, and theirs is quite in depth. And because a lot of their stats actually drives a lot of the team's decisions, and that's another set of data that completely skews anything, because it's the pairings process massively changes that. So either you capture everything and you just say, doesn't matter who you're playing, where you're playing, what you're playing, data gets recorded. If it's on BCP, if it's on the, you know, tabletop battles, it gets reported, and that's what the Goonhammer guys do with tabletop battles. They analyze everything, or they, you know, have all of that data. Or you take what Meta Monday does, and this is probably, you know, a pragmatic choice from him because it's one guy that does it. Arbitrary cutoff point, and I'll just use that as my data set. I think it's very, very hard for us to pick that number out of the air. It's either all or, you know, a very, very limited amount.
Yeah, it's just it's something to kind of to note when people are going out there and they spend an awful lot of money on these armies. Just kind of bear that in mind if you're basing it off of what you think the meta is. Look at a larger picture before you go and just go wild, spend lots of your hard-earned money on something that actually, when you go and take it to larger events, might not be as effective as you maybe want it to be. Like, obviously, if you're playing the hobby in that way, if you're playing it because you're buying models because you think they look cool and you want to play your toy soldiers, then absolutely just go for whatever the hell you want, and that is the best way to do it. If you're doing it because you're doing this from a competitive angle and you want to go out and buy the next meta thing that your mate down the pub has told you was worth buying, do your research.
I do think that these days win rate is becoming less and less of a way to judge the meta. And the reasons are, like, there's a few reasons. Like, for example, a real big one. Currently, no one is taking top meta lists that's in any sort of WTC team or a part of a team, because they're all hiding their list ready for WTC. So currently the stats mean quite little because no one's playing. The good players aren't playing the good stuff. So that's going to skew that quite hard as well. Another thing is, like, back in 9th edition, when win rate and started to become, people started to care a lot about stats, is the game was a lot more broken. There's no way of putting it. Another way of putting it. So, like, when you had an army that was like 60% win rate, like Drakari, that was just pure brute force. You know, that was, you're not going to get those sort of stats anymore that mean as much as that does, because that was, you know, you could get very average players going 3-1, 4-1, because it was just so far above everyone else. And we don't have that. As much as I said Sisters, Dark Angels, Blood Angels above everyone else, it's nowhere near to that level. They're beatable. You know, it's nowhere near as broken and unplayable. It's still a game. You know, I've played against Admech and the York buggy spam, and it's just like, oh god, if anyone remembers those days, it was not like, if you think anything's OP now or broken now, trust me, just go back to 9th and you'll feel very differently.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we could talk about this sort of thing for a long time, because it's actually...
I think Toby's muted himself.
Yeah, I did.
Well done, Toby. You're just showing just how polished we really are on blackcrow gaming. Look, I think it's probably a quite a good place to end it. Because again, I think we could talk about this quite a lot. Guys, I just want to say a massive thank you, both of you, for joining us on the podcast tonight. I'm sorry about the rocky start, but hey, it's actually ended up going really, really well. Thank you both for joining us. I hope you guys are able to utilize the little videos we did for you. And Charles, I wish you all the best with obviously your business. And I look forward to seeing you guys at Sheffield.
Yeah, thank you for having us, by the way.
Yeah,
It's been brilliant.
Great to be on.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it, guys.
No, it's just been great chatting to you both. Look, it's Arron and Toby. Toby is probably way past his bedtime. You know, he's
got school in the morning.
He's got school in the morning. We've got to look after our Toby. But if you're at Sheffield and you've watched this video, please come and say hello to me and Toby. We love being able to just chat to people. Exactly what we did with Charles and Greg, and they've ended up coming on the podcast because we wanted to talk to them more. So come chat to me and Toby. Come say hello. We're going to be at Sheffield Super Major next with Charles and Greg both there. We've been blackcrow Gaming. If you like what you see, like and subscribe. See you later, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.